Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on the Vegas Legal Magazine podcast. Today, just in time for the holiday season, a story of hope, of turning a life around, a story that starts in the projects of West Las Vegas. It's been written so many times, you want to avert your eyes. But in this case, there's a happy ending, a genuine success story for single mothers, for people who have to start with 2 strikes before they ever get up to bat. Linda Sames, my friend, an author, and an inspirational real-life story to remember. Thank you so much for joining us today on the podcast.
How you doing, Mark? I'm
It's
so
all
excited
good.
to be here.
Yeah, it's so good to see you. So good to see you. So let's start at those dark, dark days. When you first told me about your life, I was just it seemed like you were 2 or 3 different people during your lifetime. Tell me about being a little girl and where you were and what was going on.
Well, it starts off in the projects. We came here from California because my mom went to prison when I was very, very young. So I even share a story, part of the book, talking about after she went to prison, moving out here. My granddad had us living with a friend of his, and she was very mean. So that's the first feeling I had of life, feeling like it was just unfair because he had to work. So we had to live with her. And then she just kind of treated us really, really mean. And that was the first experience of like, wait, life is really not fair. And then from then on, it just kind of progressed. It was moments where it felt better, but eventually it progressed where something else happened and then something else happened. Just a snowball of events that just was my course of life.
You know, for people who haven't been in Las Vegas for a very long time, West Las Vegas used to be a pretty scary place. There were a lot of machine guns. There were intentional attempts at murder of police officers that would respond to crime. It was a different place then.
I've watched friends get shot. I've watched a lot of fights. I've seen that stuff.
One of the stories that you told me when we first met was that other kids making fun of you because your mother had been taken off to jail at that point, and you said inside that you were relieved because you knew at least on that night that your mother wasn't going to die.
Oh yeah, me and my sisters, we would kind of be grateful that she would be in jail because we would knew she was safe. Without being in jail, you hear a woman found in the desert. We would have to like wait to see who this woman was. We didn't get an opportunity to think, like it was something abstract from us. It was always, don't let that be our mother. Don't let that be our mother. Anything. I got plenty of calls. The one call, your mom is dead. Then to find out she was beat so bad with a gun, she was unconscious. She wasn't dead, but they found her unconscious. To get the call, she was hit by a truck. So those was experiences too, because something was always happening to her, but she was always bouncing back. So
there's another story that stands out in my mind, and that is how discomforting it was for you to go to school because you just didn't have clothes.
Oh yeah, it messes with your self-esteem, going to school and your friends and your peers having things that you probably wouldn't imagine that you'll ever have an opportunity to have. So I would kind of like rotate like shirts or rotate my pants, but it would be the same thing, but just trying to switch it up. A lot of times I had hand-me-downs because my friends would give me stuff. I had I call her my god sister. She used to give me stuff and I always knew it was too big, even the shoes, but I would be like, no, I could fit it, just so I could get it because I didn't know where the next pair of anything was coming from.
So lest anybody confuse this story with that this just gets bad and worse, so we'll skip ahead and then we'll come back to some of this stuff.
Okay.
Because Lynn ends up with an MBA.
Yes.
And Lynn ends up writing books.
Yes.
And Lynn ends up raising a fine family and
Well, it's just like
somehow
a blessing.
leaving all that behind. It's just amazing.
Yeah, I was a teen mom 3 times in high school, and I graduated on time with my senior class.
I'm not here to judge you because I've been through life too. Tell me so as bad as things were, you get pregnant at what age first time?
14.
14 years.
Yes.
And at what point do you realize that as bad as things were, things are going to get tougher?
That they would get tougher.
With having this pregnancy.
When you're raised spiritually, though, you kind of be okay, because spiritually, my spirituality is what I held on to. That kept me sane. And to be honest, my tears is my drug and alcohol. So for me, I cried my way through. I read a lot growing up, so I took myself other places mentally. I was a Harlequin queen. You know them Harlequin books, the romance. Yeah, garbage bags of them. So I just kind of managed, but spiritually is what kept me sound and crying my way through. Just believing. When you have a spiritual foundation, you believe there's hope. You believe there's a way out. You believe there change will come. It's just a belief something that when you truly grasp it, and then you walk in that space. So if I'm truly believing something can change or something could shift, you do the things that created at the same time. It's kind of like almost being spiritually guided, because you would think after the first two kids, it would be devastating or traumatic, right? Like, oh my God, I got these two kids. But my most profound moment, and let's not forget I was in foster care.
Yeah,
So here
this
it
is not,
is.
it's not like little bows in your hair and
Right.
stuff, right?
So here I am, a foster child in our society with all those statistics. Then here I am, a teen mom, no parents, come from a drug addict family, and I'm 17 years old, pregnant. The day I found that I was pregnant with my third child was the first time I felt like my world was collapsing. And the reason why the feeling was so devastating is because, okay, Lynn, one time, okay, you make mistakes. 2 times, okay, 3. And then you walk around with the threat that I was going to be separated from the kids. That was always a threat, because it was hard to place teen moms with their children, right? Here I am with this opportunity to stay with my children, and now I got to go tell my foster mom and my caseworker I'm pregnant again. I had no credits my 9th grade year because I was pregnant with my first son. So I had fought my way through graduating from high school, from summer classes, morning classes. Here I am, got myself all caught up, graduating on time with my senior class, and I'm pregnant. It was, I don't know, I felt like you did it. It was a moment, and I won't forget it, because everything about that moment was for real. Every fear I grasped was for real. Everything in that moment, he looked at me and said, "Oh, you're pregnant." He said it so matter of fact, like, this is what we doing. And I was devastated. And from then on, it was like the minute I was able to regroup and set myself onto new focuses, then I got it together. But that moment, it was real for me, because I thought my whole world was going to collapse. How do you go say again, you pregnant again? How do you ask your foster mom, keep another one, And that was all the challenges in and of itself, along with no connection to family. When we left, when you go into foster care, you leave your whole world. I couldn't, my friends, they didn't know what happened to me. We just disappeared one day,
It's gone.
So yeah, that was the most devastating moment. And when I remember it, because whenever that feeling comes again, I know how to counteract it. So if I get in that space where I'm feeling like that, I come right back and say, no, that's not my life. My past has nothing to do with my future. And I get it together more quicker, because that moment taught me I can't stay in that space.
And so that people understand, this isn't just a love affair that you have when you're a little kid. This is an older guy, right? These are people that are...
Yeah, they're older than me. I experienced, the incident you're probably referring to in the book, I didn't end up pregnant by the guy, but I was 13, 14, and he was 20, 21. So I didn't end up pregnant by him, but yeah, they were older men, and it's just one of those things that, coming from where I come from, I used to say that cliche, looking for love in all the wrong places, but now I understand that I was just looking for validation in the wrong places, looking to be validated. And Lisa Nichols said it for me. She defined it, where I was able to kind of unmask a little about it. She said, when you're looking for love and validation in the bed of men, it comes with pain. Mine came with pain and babies. Yeah.
So at some point, the world quits throwing fastballs at your head. When is it that you realize that you kind of caught, that you got some place to dig your way out? you got a foothold. What is it that turns things?
Well, I think that when we create milestones for ourselves, when we overcome challenges, then it prepares us for the next thing. And what I mean by that is when I graduated from high school, that feeling of being able to accomplish that, because I mean, nobody thought I would. You know, I heard everything that everybody said, from the teacher to the counselor, to my foster mom, to my my social worker, to my friends' moms who didn't want me to hang out with them because I was the bad one. It kind of prepared me to say, you can accomplish something. You can start something and finish it. That's why I was able to get my bachelor's degree, because I knew if I just hung in there, it's going to come. Just do the work and you will get there. And that kind of created that path for me when I graduated from high school, because, I didn't have no credits my ninth grade year. And I still did it on time with my senior class.
Just gutted it out. Lots to be said for gutting
So
it out.
those milestones, create segues into bigger ones, and then you just kind of learn how to conquer. And again, my tears real. I would talk about crying all day, because it's for me, it was a sounding board. My tears meant so much to me. They mean so much to me. I don't cry because people represent it with negativity and pain, and tears are not about pain at all. It's about healing. It's about strength. It's about growing in that space. It's about finding a way to release that energy, because it's going to come out, right? But in that moment, I release it, and it creates a way for me to just get past it without causing unhealthy responses. Because I teach in my classes that is, we want to have positive outcomes for ourselves. We want to do things in a healthy manner. And crying is a healthy manner, right? So I just chose to do things in a more healthy manner.
I was raised by a single mom. My father died when I was very young. I was 3 years old.
Okay.
And I can remember, it's one thing to be afraid of the world because you're out there living alone. My mom was facing the world pretty much by herself, but it was another thing to still be missing my father as much as she was. And so I can remember how regular that whole flood of tears came. That was just like part of my life.
Yeah.
That's a tough way to grow up. And you're fortunate in the regard that there were at least some role models for you in the world. There were women that were succeeding. There were, in the bigger picture, there's Oprah. There were people
Right.
in mass media.
Yes.
And I'm not sure
Definitely.
that, for a regular housewife, sitting in front of TV eating bonbons, that they necessarily see Oprah the same way that people do that are in real
Yes.
trouble.
Yeah, and it's good that you brought that up, because me growing up, she was somebody. I remember, because I'm a crier, and I remember thinking two things. We have a lot of commonality, me and Oprah, a lot. That was one of the things that helped me believe that if she could do it, I could do it. Just in the aspect of giving birth to a son at 14 years old. That's part of her story. Just the fact that seeing education as a way out, that's a part of her, and that's my story too. I remember growing up crying, and she used to cry on TV. And I used to be like, it's okay to cry. Like, she crying on TV. I know I used to say that it was okay because she was okay with it. So if she could cry in front of the world, I can cry in my bed and go to sleep and get through whatever I'm feeling the best way I can without acting out, without causing more stress and drama than I could have created out of pain, because we know the latter too. We know what other things or other resources or ways of releasing I could have turned to, and I chose not to. So, I teach in my class about understanding the power of coping skills, how we cope. That's what separates people. We all go through things in different ways on different levels.
So tell us about your class. You keep mentioning your class. Tell us about your class.
I do what's called a coping skills class down for Clark County Detention Center. And I meet with the ladies once a week for 2 hours. And it's the most powerful experience I've had with all the opportunities I've had to teach and train. I leave there so full. I leave there so almost they equip me in a way too, because I feel stronger. Number one, being able to talk to them and share with them and my story. I give statistics because a lot of times we don't even understand why we engage in the behaviors that we do, right? An example, if I put up there and I give you the statistics on the impact of being raised in a household with an alcoholic parent or a drug addict parent, this impacts to children, and as well as you being the parent that's doing it and you being the child that's receiving it, right? And they get an opportunity to process either what they're doing or what has happened to them. The child that grew up in that atmosphere who's facing a lot of anger, resentment, fear, frustration, self-doubt, uncertainty, they act out, right? But what they're called, bad. There was never bad. So if I can give you some examples and say, I'm not asking you to tell me your story, but I need you to look at what I'm talking about and look at what we're experiencing as common people. We're not separated by any race or class or anything. We're common people, right? And once they start identifying where the behavior could have came from, if I tell you you suffer from sexual abuse and I give you the dynamics of what happens of a sexual abuse victim, and you know that's your story, you can tend to say, I'm not a mess. I'm not lost. I'm not screwed up. I suffered depression.
That's where this filter came from.
I suffered from PTSD. I suffer from anxiety, and they see it different. Like, oh, I'm not just messed up. These are real feelings and emotions that I haven't learned to manage. And I want them to go deep. I don't want the surface stuff about what you're going to do about it. I want to know what is going to create a shift for you. What are you willing to sacrifice? Because you've already on this path, right? But if you could look at me and say, well, dang, she was 17 years old, pregnant, with 2 children, in foster care, and she came out of it, right? I could look at my situation and say, look, this is where I'm at right now, right? This is challenging. It seems hard and difficult. It seems like there's no window to this. But there is a window. We just need to tap into how to open it. And what are you willing to take to open it? And it's been amazing.
So you start getting some successes. You start hitting a few of them here and there, and you get a good job. One thing, you've always been a career person.
Yes.
There's a lot to be said for waking up and being at work at like 8 o'clock in the morning, right? And just having a place to go and just go do your work and put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. No, when they gave me my 15-year anniversary certificate, I've been at the county for 22 years. But when they gave me the certificate, I looked at it, and it was just my 15 years, and I was like, stability is what it felt like. Like, oh, my God. Because, foster children are not stable, right? Teen moms are out of control, right? And I'm like, stability. Like, I've been at one place for 15 years, and it just was exhilarating.
We had somebody on the podcast, and I mentioned your name, and she goes, I work with her all the time. She's great. She went on and on. Yeah.
Okay, great.
So as part of that, you wrote a book, and this is when we first met. And it's okay to cry.
Yeah, it is.
There it is. It's okay to cry, and it's written very much in the language of the streets, and very much in the language of where you were at that time. When you look back now, and you see your soul laid bare, how does that feel?
Well, it's encouraging, and because to see where you come from, it got to be encouraging, even when I talk about the relationship, because that's where I was, right?
That's mostly what you started with, is you're going to talk one of your Harlequin books.
And then when you look back and you be like, wow, I got through all of that, even through that with that person, it's very encouraging and rewarding, because you want to see yourself grow as a person, right? You want to do better. You want to create, overcome a lot of things. And when I look back and I be like, it's like a wow factor, because when you're in it, sometimes you don't see the light. And to be able to look back and say, wow, for myself, to be able to cheer myself on and be grateful, and having at that time 4 young men, eyes to look into, and be a role model and a leader for them, that was really important.
We haven't talked about that. All this is fine if you can get out and make your life and make a life, but you made a life for these kids, and they're not kids anymore.
No, they're
Tell
not.
us about
I have four older sons. They are some amazing young men. Every statistic in regards to foster children and teen moms, we overcame them all. They made my journey easier. When you don't have to run down to the school leave your job with your job threat. And I know parents who deal with that. And they made it easier. They made me proud. They all graduated on time with their senior class. My oldest son with honors. I never saw juvenile detention unless I was giving a speech. Not as a parent on the other side worrying about their child on the inside. Never saw. And that was one of the biggest things. They were supposed to be in and out of juvenile.
Yeah.
Never saw. I didn't have a teen mom. They weren't teen parents. I didn't have my first grandson by my second son and his wife. They gave me a grandson. So yeah, they turned out to be amazing. They career-oriented, career-driven. I opened up a nonprofit with my oldest son, so Super Inc. We have a nonprofit together that we've done some
What
amazing
does that
things in
do?
our community.
What does that do?
Well, we've been able to, we had 4 annual Thanksgiving giveaways, some huge ones. We've had 4 annual backpack giveaways, which we've did some collaborations with Kevin Hart, the actor. We've been able to collaborate with the city. We've been able to collaborate with the gang force unit through the county. So we've had some amazing collaborations. Our last one was with the Sunrise Children's Foundation this summer. So we've did some amazing things in our community that we could really be proud of. Just want to give back, and we're grateful for our life and how our life turned out, knowing where we came from. So we keep that in front of us. So we're all proud. We all do it together as a team. But me and my oldest son open it.
I forget, how do you run your Facebook? Is your foundation Facebook, you intersperse the two, or can people follow you on?
Oh, yeah. So everything is under Lynn Jasames, LYNNEJASAMES. My website is under my name as well. So you Google me, and Super Inc. has its own website. It's superinc.org. So you can tap into our website as well. So.
I am so glad that you had a chance to come on. I really do appreciate you coming on, and it's so good to see you. And you're one of those people that, irrespective of what else is going on in the world, the next time I see you, I know you'll always be a little bit better,
Oh,
and a little
thank
bit
you.
better, and a little bit better,
Thank
and a little
you.
bit better. Thanks so much for coming
Thank
on
you.
the show today.
Well,
We
I thank
really-
you for this opportunity, just so people can understand that we live in a world where we can overcome. Surround yourself with the right people, have the right mindset, gather some type of spiritual practice because it's important, And once you can conquer those things, and just keep pressing forward no matter what, because I promise you, even when it looks dark, there's some light.
There is, in
There's some light.
fact, some light.
And
Thank
when
you.
the odds are against you, beat them.
There you go. There you go. And with that, we call it a day, the Vegas Legal Magazine podcast. I want to thank you, my friend Lynn Jasames. I loved reading the book. Absolutely
Thank
loved
you.
it. And when I'm always in a jam, I always tell myself, Lynn pulled herself out of trouble, and you can too. If you like the show, please share, rate us on iTunes, follow us on Facebook, share the story. You never know when this one is going to help. Have a good one. We're out of here.